Hello, everyone. I'm Mickey Moore, your host today for another episode of Run Life Today. I'm excited to be joined by Robin Johnston. Hey, Robin.
Hey, Mickey, how are you?
Awesome. Thank you again for being here.
My pleasure.
As always, we gather to have these conversations in order to learn more about these inspiring individuals, teams, and businesses and missions on how they handle integration of work and life. There's so many lanes of life that we have: business and fitness and friends and family, our faith, and of course, community involvement. And what I've seen over time, some people just find an art to do it really well. I don't know about too much of a science or formula, but they've become very successful in being in all the lanes of life that they can be. Remember, Run Life Today, anytime you want to visit our website to learn more, runlifetoday.org. Let's learn how to run life more than life running us. So let's get on with our conversation with Robin on this wonderful day. And Robin, you and I go way back, but of course, some people that are going to be listening may not know you yet. They should, and they're missing out. I can tell you that. But let's start with some of that family background, if you will. Just, where you're kind of from and a little bit about your upbringing, and then we'll get into some business and all that other stuff.
Great. Yeah, so I've been in Tallahassee since 2006, and I consider myself a delayed pioneer. And what I mean by that is, although my family came to this country long before it was a country, my family emigrated here in 1695 from Strasbourg, France, and lived here until the mid-1900s when my grandmother, my mother's mother, moved her branch of the family to Canada. I was born in Canada, and I brought us back here in 1999. So a little delay from the original wave that moved here, but been in the States since 1999 and down in Tallahassee since 2006. But I did grow up in Canada. My mother is an ordained minister, and my father is an attorney. So I usually thought growing up that everything I was up to was either immoral or illegal. But that was the thin path I had to walk as a child.
Yeah, let's hope you grew out of that. Yeah.
I hope I did.
So you're certainly North American roots. Let's say that.
At least for the last 400 years.
Yeah. So, and when you said you came back to the States, so what was the transition and why? I don't know that I've ever asked you.
I had, to sort of fill in some gaps from my childhood. I quit high school when I was 17, started a courier company, just me and one car at that point. By the time I was 20, had 3 vehicles, 5 employees, had moved out, bought a house, and had a going concern there. And then sold that when I was 20 to move to Toronto and get married at the ripe old age of 20. Ended up not getting married, ended up getting jilted instead. Broke my heart, but moved back to my hometown and said, well, now what am I going to do? Some friends of my family convinced me to go to community college. So I studied business, managed to get into community college without a high school diploma on the basis of my business experience. When I finished community college, I went to a university and got my bachelor's in 1 year in commerce. Then moved to Vancouver, got licensed as an insurance broker. Spent a year or so doing that, hated every minute of it. Moved back to my hometown in Ontario and became city commissioner for 3 years. Got elected when I was 24.
And I'm not, so yeah, let me pause there, because obviously, LinkedIn's got everything, and I've already stalked you, all right, or researched you, but city council, I didn't know you were on the city council at 24. Yeah. I mean, so what was your campaign mantra? What was your pitch?
Yeah, really at that point, for me personally, it wasn't a political thing. And in Canada, especially at that time, politics, was politics, but it wasn't the way we know politics today, right? So when you ran, especially at the municipal level, it was free of labels. You weren't on the left, you weren't on the right. You were an individual representing the city, coming to do good things for your city. And I think most people really believe that. And I'm quite confident that most of the other candidates really came to the table with that ambition, as did I. Okay. And so politics was really very, very pure at the municipal level at that time. My goal really at that point was to get some experience and to play a role on the board of directors for a $36 million corporation that served the needs of every citizen, business, and tourist that came to our community. And that's the way I saw that. You know, I had the chance to have an input into the daily lives of those three constituencies and help craft policy and create opportunity for them. And I like to think I did that on my 3-year term.
Oh, wow. I have so many questions. You know, I have a curious mind, and to help run a $36 million business, I mean, there's so many things I could ask you about, but let's transition. So at some point, that obviously 3-year term, maybe you lost a re-election bid, but you know, so continue that path for me.
Yeah, so when I finished my 3-year term, at that moment I thought, you know, I'd like to take the next step in my career. I had a great experience as a commissioner. I have no doubt that I could have been reelected had I decided to rerun. But I decided at that point I wanted to go on and further my education. And I moved to Toronto and got into the Rotman School of Management, which is part of the University of Toronto, their MBA program. So I got my MBA in Marketing and Corporate Strategy. And then when I finished that, this is 1999 now, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where a friend of mine had just started a software company and was looking for somebody to head sales and marketing.
Okay.
So I moved to Charlotte in May of 99. We grew that up from literally 4 of us. My friend and his partner had 1 employee, and I was the second employee. In May, we were 4. In December, we were 22. By December the following year, we were 95 people.
Wow.
So 20 months from 4 of us to 95 people, from 350,000 to 6 million in revenues. So that was fun.
I love the eyebrow raise. That was fun.
I mean,
you
know what it's like.
Yeah, in your business acumen, and again, from there, you started your own company. You worked in institutions, you know, colleges. You've raised money, and then back to a technology company, right?
Yes,
Bloom Intelligence, I believe, is where you're at now. And in between, I think you found some time to get a PhD or something. I don't know.
I am this close on the PhD.
Okay, well, I mean, let's say it's done. I mean, your record speaks for itself. So I'm going to give you credit. I'm going to bestow a PhD on you.
Thank you. Where's that cap?
Yeah, where's the hat? Sorry. So from a business perspective, fundraiser, owning an own business, being an executive, being a city councilman, and currently I think you're COO officially, is that the time? So in all of those, what would you say is your favorites, 1 or 2 favorite opportunities so far?
That's a really tough question. That is a very, very difficult question, Mickey. I don't know if I could boil that all down to a single favorite. I can tell you what the common thread is in my career.
Yeah.
And you mentioned fundraising. After I was with Varian Technologies in Charlotte for 3.5 years, then went into higher education when I was recruited to be vice president at Randolph Community College, vice president for development, or institutional advancement, they call it at that college, which integrated the fundraising through the foundation and the college, the marketing and the strategic planning divisions all together under one umbrella. I was recruited as their first ever VP for institutional advancement. And then came down here to Tallahassee when Bill Law was president of TCC. Bill found me and recruited me down here to be vice president for development at TCC. So I did that for altogether for 8 years at TCC as well.
Yeah.
But when I look back and I think about all of the things that I've done, which are very diverse. I mean, from city commission to insurance sales, you know, property and casualty insurance. I was a licensed property and casualty insurance broker. To different roles in software companies, heading sales and marketing, now heading operations, to, you know, all these things. I think the common thread for me and the driver in my life is to have the opportunity to be a part of a small team that's building something. That's the common thread. I've never been comfortable or satisfied in a sort of rank and file role for something that's operating and just needs to continue operating. just keep the trains moving, keep it on time. That's not my comfort zone. My comfort zone is less than perfect information in a fast moving environment or where parts have to get rearranged and plugged back in for optimal performance.
Nice.
And so that's really what drives me. It's
a great answer to a great question. Thank you. So that's the business side. Let me get into a little detail on the family, right? So I know how much you love your family. I mean, I'm assuming we all do, but there are some interesting stories around your family and the time and dedication that you put into your family. So tell us a little bit about your family, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So my wife and I just this past June celebrated 25 years of marriage. We were married in 1995. Interestingly, I had just moved back to my hometown from Vancouver. So I just gotten out of the insurance business, moved back to my hometown. I was contemplating putting in a bid to run for city commission. And I met this woman. I was working part-time in a bank at that time when I moved back home. And this woman came in and I saw her across the wicket from me and I made her deposit. And by the time she left, I knew her name, that she was very good looking, that she was from the city of Toronto, and that she worked at the health department. That was all I knew. And she was new to town. And about a week later, I just couldn't help it anymore. So I called the health department and I asked for her. And I got to her secretary who took a message and she said she'd have her call me back. Okay, so I waited a few days. She never called me back. So I called again. And the secretary had been, given some screening questions. And she said, may I ask what this is regarding? I said, it's a personal call. All right, I'll give her the message. And a few days later, she still hadn't called back. So I called again and I was assured that she had my message and she'd call me if she wanted to give me a call back. Well, but another week after that went by and Mary Lou's is my wife. Mary Lou called and said, how can she help me? Very officious.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you probably don't remember me, but I served you at the bank. And I know you don't know many people in town. She had just moved from the big city of Toronto to our little town, 21,000 people. I figured she doesn't know anybody. So I said, look, if you'd like to get together sometime and I can show you the city or, we can go to dinner or something, I'd love to meet you. And she said, well, I'll get back to you. So about another week went by and she called and she said, okay, she'd be happy to meet me for dinner. So we went for dinner, and that first dinner was June 2nd, 1994. Or June 2nd, 1994. And within a month we were engaged. A year and a day later we were married.
Nice.
And it's, been 25 years. So that's
You knew you wanted to go out on a date with her. I'll tell you that. I mean, you keep calling the health department. Somebody might have thought something was wrong with you. I mean, Well, I again, having known you a little bit too, I so much admired the tree story, and you sharing that with me years ago, and then me doing the same for my kids. So thank you for that. That's an awesome. And now tell us about Nico.
Yeah. So Nico was what we had in the back of our mind when literally I planted that tree in that picture right there.
Yeah.
That's a watercolor painting that was done of a tree that I had planted on our first wedding anniversary. So June 3rd, 1996, that tree was planted and dedicated by the city. And we always thought that, if we were in that area or if we made trips back, that would one day be a mighty oak, which it is today. And we would take, our future children down to that tree and sit by the riverfront and have picnics down there. So Nico is our one child. He came a little later in life than we expected him to, but we're delighted to have him. He was not by any means an accident. It just took us a while to get to that.
Yep.
And he is now 12 years old. He's a going concern. He's a 7th grader at Fairview Middle School. He's vice president of the student body. So he's off and running. Very proud of him.
He's an active young man as well, with I guess a movie career ahead of him or something. I mean, I don't know how much money he's already made. The paparazzi following him around town, I guess. But No, I mean, again, it's another lane of life, right? When you have family and when you have, a vision of what you want a family to be like or things you want or how you want to raise your kids. So I understand that takes energy and focus. So
Yes.
again, kudos to you and Mary Lou and raising a great young man. So
Thank you.
so let's shift now to another lane. So fitness, right?
Yeah.
So I understand you're in this thing called F3 and you do some rucking
Yep.
along with Mary Lou. She rucks with you.
Yes.
But share with our audience a little bit about F3 and your commitment there.
Sure. So F3 is a national group started in Charlotte, North Carolina 10 years ago this month. So 10 years ago, January 1st, the first flag was planted. And F3 stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. And it's really a group dedicated to male community leadership, right? Which is sort of strengthening men as a bedrock in the family and in the community is really the stated intention of that group. There are literally hundreds of chapters across the country. Tallahassee has the distinction of being the second chapter after the founding chapter in Charlotte. Okay. So the founders, there was somebody who was from here who had a connection to them, thought it was a neat idea, got it kicked off here in Tallahassee. And now we have well over 100 men who through the course of a year meet at various times, 6 days a week now, Monday to Friday, and also Saturdays for the last 2 years to work out together and share their faith, profess their faith together, and just really bond for fellowship and serve as a network that help each other and accomplish things in the community. But it's one of those things, I tell the new guys, the FNGs as they call them, the friendly new guys who get recruited and come to find out what this odd group is about. I say, you'll come for the fitness because it is a great boot camp style workout at 5:25 every morning, but you'll stay for the fellowship. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's a terrific bunch of guys that covers the entire community.
And so you've been in it how long now?
This is 5 years for me, just coming up. 2021 will be 5 years.
And how many posts have you made?
That's a great question. So we didn't used to track posts previously, up to about 2 years ago. And then we had a member who thought, this would be neat to sort of really get more statistical about it and track what everybody's doing. And so he's been very gracious to, on a daily basis, capture information from all the little groups across Tallahassee that meet. And sometimes we're meeting in 2 or 3 locations simultaneously, but he watches videos and receives emails and logs that all in a spreadsheet. Last year, because I got diverted doing some competitions, doing some long distance rucks. Last year, I managed to scrape in exactly 100 posts by December 31st. So December 31st was my 100th post.
Okay. And so so this is, again, every week y'all meet, and it's not like you have to go to every one, but it's another thing. If you're going to be engaged in fellowship, you should be there, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, or anything, fitness, anything. It's called consistency, right? So, so are you at liberty to share your name, your nickname, your F3 name, and why, or is that private?
Sure, no, I can share that. And just to give a little background on that, everybody in F3 gets a nickname after they've been to their 3rd post. Okay. It's always something. The one rule about nicknames, and some names are closer to the line than others. Mine is I'm very happy with my nickname. But the one rule about nicknames is it has to be something that can be shouted across a middle school playground while it's filled with kids, right? Okay. So you can imagine some of the names that would get disqualified with that criteria. But it's got to be something that the kids wouldn't turn around and look at you and do one of these.
Right.
But I was recruited by Ben Graybar, and Ben and I were both faithful members of LT 26, best looking class ever. It's okay to stare. And Ben brought me in. Ben happened to know that I am a member of Mensa, and so he nicknamed me Mensa. So my F3 name is Mensa.
Yeah, Ben and I have talked about F3 a few times, and we've teased, what my nickname could be. So I remember one time he said, or I said, "What about Mick Light?" You're right, because you could yell.
Except that there's nothing light about you, Mickey.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. But still, it sounded funny. I was like, I like that. But apparently you can't pick your nicknames. So
no.
Yeah. Okay. So F3, and then the last part of F3, when you talk about rucking, because that's something again that consumes a lot of time and energy. It's not like you can just go out and ruck the distance that you're doing. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the rucking really comes from my involvement with a different group that tends to have a lot of overlap with F3, and that other group is called GoRuck.
Okay.
GoRuck was founded by some former military special operators who are based in Jacksonville now, is where the GoRuck headquarters are. And they wanted a way post-service, when they retired out of the military, however long their service was, they wanted a way to stay active, to keep their training up, and to introduce civilians to just a little slice of what they went through as they trained and became warriors, really. From all the branches. And so they put this, the CEO of the organization is a guy named Jason McCarty, who sort of wanted to build these rucks that were for civilians, but sort of emulated the stress. They were capable of going through some of the stresses that a good military ruck would go through. So he built these packs, and he introduced the world to this activity called rucking, which, unless you're in the military, you probably didn't know much about it. But it's basically wearing one of these packs and putting heavy weight in it and walking ridiculously long distances.
Right.
As he got that launched, he built around that an organization that was multifaceted. And they ended up doing 6-hour events that were not rucking, but were more PT boot camp type based events. But they did 6-hour events, 12-hour events, 24-hour events, and 48-hour events. And the 48-hour event is almost a direct representation. Again, it's just a slice of it, but a direct representation of the sort of military cadre-driven, super intensive, really weeding out exercise, training ground exercise that candidates for special operations go through. And we've heard about, Ranger School and Hell Week and Buds that the SEALs do and things like that. This is sort of loosely based on that. And so there's a lot to the sort of those event type things. But the rucking component, which is really where my heart lies now. I mean, outside of F3 and the work we do together, the workouts we do, my exercise, I do some mountain biking, some running and things like that. But the rucking is really my main activity. In a nutshell, what it is you put on, depending on your weight, you put on a ruck with a certain amount of weight in it, a steel plate that weighs 20 pounds or 10 pounds if you're lighter, plus your water and supplies and equipment, and you just walk. It's so simple, but it's so hard.
Yeah, right.
because the traditional ruck event, what they call the Star Course, happens to be 50 miles. So I've done 3 of their 50 milers. And the last 2 times I've done it, my team has placed second place. And then, as you mentioned, Mary Lou got into it this last year. At first, sort of hesitantly, but then she was all in. And I'll tell you, she is a fierce competitor. She's super competitive. But she and I went to Jacksonville Beach this last November, and we came first on a marathon. So, woo! So we'll take it. But our team name was Sterling Silver Ruck Crew because we celebrated 25 years this year. And we thought, what a great way to sort of cap off this year in the waning weeks of 2020. Let's do something fun together that we'll never forget. As if we needed a reason never to forget 2020.
Oh, of course. I mean, kudos. And again, people that haven't tried that yet, can you understand that the time that takes, right? Whether it's 26-mile walk or a 50-mile walk, I mean, that's a long time on your feet, and not to mention, the mental focus that you've got to have, right? And I imagine she felt it was easy because she was walking next to you, and y'all were, lovebirds for 25 years. But even more importantly, though, the example you set for Nico, right? Sure. I mean, and that's another reason, some of us do the things we do, is to be a good example for others, to inspire our kids, I think.
Yeah, and I think, I think you're right. Lots of people do aspire to that, some more intentionally than others. I can
Mhm.
tell you that Mary Lou and I are very intentional in our parenting style, where we will look at the things we do, good and bad. And, we're human, we make mistakes, we do things that we ought to have done differently or think differently about it before we participate. But we look at the things we do and we say, what can we take from this and translate into a teachable moment for ourselves?
Yeah.
And so in something like these ruck events, like this last November when we went to Jacksonville Beach into the marathon, we talked about all the training that it takes. And it was, our training schedule, it was a 14-week training plan that required us both to ruck Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. And a typical week was something like, 2 miles, 6 miles, 3 miles on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But the mileage would change a little bit. So maybe it's 3, 5, 4, but it sort of generally peaks on Wednesday, but lower mileage. But then Saturday was something like 15 miles or 10 miles or 12 miles, and Sunday was 6 or 8 miles. But it was every single week. It was 5 days a week. And so we talked about persistence and perseverance and having a goal and why it's important that we keep doing this and why we can't take a weekend off,
Right.
especially one of the critical longer distance weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
all the
I
lessons that we pull out of it.
yeah. And you preaching to the choir, right?
Yeah,
And race day, I know a lot of my friends who maybe not engage in running like I do, they think the hard part is race day. And I'm
no,
like, no,
no,
race
that's
day,
easy.
no, race day for me is like, woohoo.
Yeah,
But it's the prior 12 weeks of,
absolutely.
missing that happy hour or
Right.
that meal
Yep.
or an hour here doing something I really wanted to do. So,
Yep.
again, kudos to you and Mary Lou for that success and
Yeah.
coming in first place on your 25th anniversary. That's
It,
awesome.
it, it was fantastic. Really it was, when we came in and I'd been telling Mary Lou the whole way because, I'd done enough of the events to know what a reasonable pace is and have a sense that we were probably in the top couple groups. And I kept joking with her and telling her all the way, you're number one, you're number one, you're number, she's like, get out of here, get out. When we crossed the finish line and they came out and congratulated us and handed us the patches and said, that's wonderful. And we said, so, but what place are we, right? Because we didn't see anybody around, nobody standing on a podium waiting with the gold in their hand and, we're going to be silver. We didn't know. And they said, oh, you won. And we're like, so, and because that's the difference when you're rucking than when you're running, right? When you're running, you're going to end up with a couple people anyway, generally, who are, where the next person is. When you're rucking, that was a 6.5 hour event, and the 50 milers were, our first one was 17 hours and 17 minutes. The second was 14 hours and 30 minutes. And the third one was 14 hours and 58 minutes. And you're out just walking for 14, 15, 17 hours. You have no idea where anybody else is.
No, much less know where you are. that'd be
No
my
clue.
concern.
You have
Yeah.
no clue.
So one more lane, okay. I think it's obvious that again you've learned pretty well, you and Mary Lou, to work across and integrate many lanes. But one more, because I know this one consumes a lot of time and energy and focus for you, is community involvement, right?
Yeah.
So share with me, a couple of the things that you really care most about in our community, or that where you volunteer, those kind of things.
Sure. Yeah, I've had several volunteer roles here in Tallahassee. I was appointed by the mayor to sit on the airport advisory board for several years. I was on a gang intervention task force called 50 Large, a number of different things. But I think the thing that I've been involved with from the very beginning that I'm just so proud to continue to be involved with. I love the organization dearly. I love what it does. We've talked about it in the past. Is KCCI, Night Creative Communities Institute. That group, under Mike Pate's leadership, with Betsy Couch as our executive director, and we've had excellent executive directors before Betsy, but she's the latest and longest serving. That group has done so many terrific things through the hands and minds of the catalysts that we recruit. It is truly a Tallahassee gem. So.
Nice. Okay. And you've been, I guess, partnered either for how long with them?
Yeah,
Were you in the group?
I've been on the board since the very beginning. So when
Okay.
that started, Mike came. In fact, when I was VP at TCC and oversaw the foundation there, Mike came originally to me and asked if I would be fiscal agent. If the
Yeah.
foundation would be fiscal agent. So that's how we started that relationship. I was granted a board seat because of that. And when I left TCC, Mike was gracious enough to keep me on it. My main role with that group now, other than providing guidance as part of a terrific board team, is fundraising. In fact, so I really enjoy reaching out into the community and connecting people back to KCCI and bringing them back into the purpose of that mission. And I love that part of it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I've never been in the group, but of course you can see, the things they've done, around the community everywhere.
Yeah.
The big TLH sign, right? It's over the walking bridge right there. I mean, every time I see that, I go, oh yeah, KCCI. So,
Yep.
Well, thank you for that work because, I didn't know you were on the board.
Yep.
If I just looked on the website, maybe I'd have known that. But
Right.
any others that you spend time supporting or being around?
Since I left TCC, I've sort of backed out of a lot of those other community commitments. That's really the main one that I'm involved with now. And I do a little bit of consulting and work with some nonprofits in the community, and I thoroughly enjoy that as well. But from a volunteer and community involvement perspective, that's really where I'm putting my effort.
Good. Well, I am happy to see that they released again your article recently in the newspaper about the emojis that we share with when we describe our board members at nonprofits. And I reread it and I went, oh yeah, yep, I remember that. Needless to say, do I miss it? Maybe not, but it's certainly relative. So Robin, as I mentioned to you earlier, we want to give you an opportunity to hopefully share some best practices, right? A few tips that, our audience could say, if I wanted to integrate a few more lanes into my life, right? If all I'm doing is work, I got to start maybe being in the community. I got to start maybe doing some more fitness or maybe even going to church more often, whatever it may be. What would some of those tips be that you could share with them to consider? And again, these are not scientific models. They're not formulas that work for everybody. It's all relative to the individual. We get that, but I wanted to at least put that out there, right? So from your perspective, Robin, what are those successful tips that you could share with people in running life more than having life run them?
Yes, Mickey, when I think about it, one of the main things I would say is, when you are flying commercial and you get on the plane and you get in your seat and the flight attendant comes up and starts that spiel about all the things you need to know, the exits are over here and your seatbelt works like this. And they say, in the event of a depressurization event, a mask will fall from the ceiling. And they say, please adjust your own mask before helping other passengers. You know that part.
Right.
I would think, and again, this is why I have to sort of put a little explanation around this. I think that's really one of the key lessons that I have internalized that I would advocate for other people to internalize. And I have to explain it because it sounds sort of selfish on the surface when you think about that, right? Think about yourself before you think about other people. But I think the truth is, if you're not in a good place, if you're not centered, and I'll go back to F3, if you're not centered in your fitness, in your fellowship, and in your faith, if you're not balanced and in a secure place, you can't be very good. You can't be any good to anybody else for very long. And so it's important to sort of get grounded. And, in GoRuck, they would say you have to get right, right? You have to get right. It's important to get right so that you can be of service to other people. And it just takes a moment to do that, but you have to make sure those things are balanced in your life first before you start going out and trying to help others. So.
Nice. No, that makes sense. Fix your mask before you fix others. Because if you're not in the right place for you, how are you then going to parse out you to so many different other lanes and things when you're not in a good place for yourself? No, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it.
And in the plane analogy, I mean, physically, if there's a depressurization, I mean, you might not be around to help anybody if you don't get that mask fixed yourself, right?
Right.
So you're fumbling around trying to help somebody else. Now you've caused two people to be in jeopardy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I think that's one of the first and main things. Something else I'd share is, it sort of flows from this sort of unique path that I took through my life, from quitting high school to now being on the verge of earning a PhD this year. When I think about all the different things I've done along that journey, I just encourage people to step out of their comfort zone and try different things. We're not my father's era anymore. And although there are people who are quite happy and quite successful doing the exact same thing through their whole career, like my father did. My father graduated law school. He went to work at a law firm in Brockville, Ontario, as a junior partner. And 52 years later, he retired as senior partner. And he was not only in the same firm, but the firm was operating out of the same physical building. And he moved a total of 15 feet from one office to somewhere along that career. He changed offices in his entire working career. He walked from our house a little more than half a mile to that office every single day for 52 years. While some people can make that work or are interested in that, and very productive in that way, I think more people can get more experience and get more productive and find opportunities to enrich their entire life by branching out and trying some different things, and just putting themselves in a situation where they can experience, frankly, more challenge and more difficulty, right? Because we can do more than we think we can do.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm a big risk reward person, right? And that's kind of what you're saying. It's, there's not much reward for not taking risk. You're going to get you get the same result, right? You're doing the same thing over and over. So, no, I appreciate your wise suggestions, because I know they come from experience and they come from success, but also failures. Like you said, we all have those, and we all make our mistakes. And hopefully our audience, again, will get something out of this to where maybe they can, control's a strong word, and I try not to use it, but to lead more of your life, than letting life lead you. Because you and I have talked a lot over the years of being proactive and reactive,
Yes.
So I mean, there's a lot that can be said there, but every action causes a reaction. So, I mean, it's just a lot there. And why not figure out some best ways to be in more control of those? So that's what we did today with Robin Johnston. Robin, I appreciate you, and I value our friendship, and I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. Who knows? Maybe F3 one day.
We'll get you out there.
I already have a nickname, but anyway. So yeah,
you don't get to choose.
All right. But to our audience, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be on the lookout for more episodes. And again, if you want to learn more about Run Life Today, visit our website, Run.Life.Today.org. All of our social links are on there. Until next time, take care and run more of life than letting life run you. Take care. See you, Robin.
Take care, Mickey.